Ladies and gentlemen, it's the Big Jiu-Jitsu Show, a member of the Podbros Podcast Network. Go to podbros.com and find yourself another podcast you want to listen to. And please check out our sponsors, Trap and Roll Soap Company, Tape Armor, PR Performance, and Angry Joe Coffee, and find all of our old episodes on bjjshow.com. I'm Rob, and today I've got a guest. Yes, James Hoffman has pointed me in the direction of somebody else. He seems to be on a roll these days, But today I've got Rich McKeegan, the guy who is the mastermind behind Blackbelts for Butterflies. And, Rich, thanks for coming on the show today, man.
Oh, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Anytime. And, you were one of the people I've really wanted to get on the show. Like I said, like we were talking about before, it was kind of like, who do I get on the show? And then James is like, why not the guy who does Black Belt for Butterflies? And I had that like, oh, good job, dumbass moment. Like that is, why didn't I ask before? So this is something I'm very excited to have you on the show. This is a very awesome thing that you're doing. And I know you have an event coming up here pretty soon, a couple weeks, right? By the time the episode airs, which should be the 11th, this is going to be a couple weeks out. So you have something coming up, right?
We have our West Coast Black Belts for Butterflies event in San Jose, California, coming up on July 22nd and 23rd. And it's going to be at Coyotero Academy in San Jose. So I'm very excited. We've got 8 black belts that donated all their time to come in, teach. We've got some amazing raffle prizes from, some awesome sponsors from all over the country, from the East Coast, West Coast. So it's really going to be an amazing event. Start off at 10 o'clock in the morning. You learn some jiu-jitsu from, top of the line players out there. And then also, it's like we bring in a lot of guest speakers, which is really cool, which makes the event more personable, because 100% of the proceeds for the event, we try and pick a small nonprofit in the area and donate that money to them. So for this event, we're donating all the money that we raise to Angels on Stage. And that way, it's like the money stays in the community that we visit. It was a big crossing for when we started in Connecticut, because 100% of the proceeds we raise in Connecticut goes to Dylan's Wings of Change. And we focus on autism. We focused before on the acceptance of autism. That's a big one, because everyone's aware of it. You have to be living in a cave to not know what autism is. And people are aware. But to really be accepting about it, that's where we're really trying to change people's minds and focus our efforts on.
Excellent. I mean, that's a really noble cause. And I know that there's been a lot of talk about it. I know you've had some really big names in jiu-jitsu come out and teach for your seminars. So could you give us a little hint as to who's going to be coming out this next event?
Well, obviously, since we're going to Coyotero's Academy, Kyle himself is going to be teaching. He just had a huge win at Fight to Win last weekend. We got Yuri Simos, Brian Pangilinan, who's a 3-time world champion, James Foster from Seattle, Washington, Marcos Torregrossa. The list of his accolades are ridiculous. He had a great match this past Friday as well. Christina Barlin from the San Jose area, and Alan Marquez is going to be there as well, also known as Gumby. So I'm excited for all these black belts. I got a bet with Christina that I can eat more than her, so it's going to be battle of the lightweights, tearing into some donuts and ice cream when we get out there.
Awesome, man. For the Big Jiu-Jitsu Show, that's something we're really excited about. For eating contest. But you said you had a lot of big names, and I noticed, because I looked at the flyer before we got on here as well, and looked at it a while back. It says you have a special guest surprise black belt coming out there. Is that correct?
Oh, we are we'll be throwing out some hints on Facebook and the social media, my Instagram, Rich McKeegan, Black Belts for Butterflies. You can also check out our Facebook page, Black Belts for Butterflies. So we'll be throwing out some hints of who that final 8th spot is, and I promise you will not be disappointed with that one. I'm excited beyond belief. You say some. It's interesting because we do have big names, but we have black belts who are local guys. And since the beginning of Black Belts for Butterflies, it's always been important to just have good, solid people. And that's what's important, because they're the ones. You can have a great name, be great on the mat, but are you a great person? I don't know. That's a tough one. So everyone that teaches at Black Belts for Butterflies, they're donating their time. They're coming to Connecticut or going to, last year we went to Washington at James Foster School. So those people believe in what we're doing. And that's important, because if you don't have the same ideas, how can you bring someone out there to teach and talk about what you're doing? So they're very supportive on the mat. They're supportive off the mat. At any point in time, most of these guys, I sit there and I can bounce ideas off them. I can call them. I can say, hey, what do you think of this? And they're like, Rich, that's a great idea. Or, Rich, that is absolutely horrible. Don't ever bring that up again. I'm like, all right, great. But they're also, a lot of these guys have become such a big part of, my family, knowing them. And when you share this experience, it's different. It's different from a lot of jiu-jitsu seminars I've ever been to. It's very personable. You go out there on the mat, and I get it a lot. I get the aftermath of emails or text messages or Facebook messages going, and I wasn't expecting it to be like that. I expected to come in, learn some jiu-jitsu, and people take away something more. And that's what's important. It's the impact that you make on your community, the people around you. And when I started this, I was a blue belt. I started this due to the fact that my son was born on the same day as the Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting in my home state in Connecticut. So I felt like I had to just do something more, get off my ass. So I started with a patch, and I had a friend. He sat there and he got the patches created. I had another friend who designed them. And then I just set up a Facebook page. I started selling them in Connecticut. And then all of a sudden it just kind of spread. The jiu-jitsu community wanted to help. People are very giving, very loving in the jiu-jitsu community. So it kind of spread from the East Coast to the West Coast. And one of the people that it hit was Pete Wilhelm, black belt in Oklahoma. So within 5 minutes, I had him on Facebook. I had the professor of my school, Rod Magow, on the phone, and we had a plane ticket, and we set him up to come to Connecticut to do a small seminar, charity event. So he donated his time. And then along with him, Robert DeFranco from Texas, 3rd degree black belt, he said, he called Pete up and he's like, hey, how can I help? And Pete's like, show up. And that's been kind of a big thing. It's like, how can I help? How can I do more? Show up. Just come to the event and you'll see. So it's really organically grown over time. So I never had like an idea, plan of where this was going to go. We sat there, we raised a little over $7,000 off the patches and a small, just a small seminar at our school in Manchester, Connecticut. And we donated all those proceeds to the Yukon Scholarship Foundation for victims of Sandy Hook. From there, I met a woman who introduced me to Ian Hockley. Ian and Nicole Hockley lost their son, Dylan, and Dylan was on the spectrum. So it's something just, I gravitated towards Ian, a great person, great father, and Dylan, there was something about him that just really hooked my heart. So I found out, what was going on. So I started talking to Ian. We met, and one day he was telling me the story about his son and his mom. Dylan since he was on the spectrum, his vocal skills were affected, but he was also a flapper. So some children that are autistic will sit there and flap their hands. So one day his mom asked him, she's like, why do you flap your wings? And he said, because I'm a beautiful butterfly.
Oh, man.
So with that, it just kind of hit me one day. I was like, Black Belts for Butterflies. And I talked to Ian about doing a super seminar, bringing in 10 black belts. I'd never seen it. I'd never been a part of anything like that. I brought it to my professor, and Rob's like, I'll never forget. He's like, dream big. He's like, go big, dream big. And all of a sudden I'm texting people and people are like, yeah, I'll go. Yep, I'll teach. And that's where I met James Foster. And he came out, Pete came out, Robert DeFranco, a bunch of local black belts here in Connecticut. And we had a great seminar. But it really was so unplanned of how this was going to unfold. So from there, word spread. People were excited about it, and all of a sudden it was like the year rolls around. And it's like, all right, let's do it again. And that event really went off as well. Very special. And people walked away, and they would sit there and they're like, holy cow, I was touched. I was personally touched by that. I'm a better person for being there, and I want to help too now. I want to do something else in my community. And then the third year came around, and all of a sudden it's like I'm in Connecticut, and I'm going to Washington. And now this is the fourth year, and it's like Connecticut and San Jose. And it's the amount of people that I've been able to meet and talk to, and it's been an amazing experience for me. I'm very blessed, to say the least, to have this experience in my life and jiu-jitsu and all the people that give. And I think that's the best word to say is they give everything to it.
I was going to say something I've noticed about this, the black belts for butterflies is, like you said, it brings in a lot of people all together, and the jiu-jitsu community is very giving, like you said. So getting all these big names together, no matter how, like, I'll teach 15, it doesn't matter like what they do as long as they're supporting. Like, that's something that says a lot about what we do and the type of people that we have that are like the figureheads in this type of, sport or hobby or whatever you want to call it, martial art. Like, that's how solid of a group we got.
Well, it's funny because we've if you're doing jiu-jitsu now, you're in such a cool era, because we have the greats that are still around. Some of the Gracies, in Connecticut, we have a coral belt, Marcio Stambowski. To sit there and be able to get on the mat with them, we're affiliated under Pedro Sauer. So, once a year I get to hang out with Pedro Sauer. Last year, got to go lunch with him and my professor and just sit there and talk about, jiu-jitsu, but also listen to stories about him coming up with, the Gracies. So it's like I'm lucky to be, anyone at this part, we're still lucky to have those people around. But also the explosion of jiu-jitsu over the last few years has been huge. No other sport can you sit there and say, hey, what are you doing? You play baseball? Cool. What are you doing this weekend? Oh, I'm going to go play catch with it. Derek Jeter, A-Rod. It doesn't happen. But we get to look up to these guys and actually go on the mat and talk to them, train with them, ask them questions face to face. And I don't think any other sport, martial art, gives you that opportunity.
I really don't like. I have to agree with you 100% on that, because there are people in other martial arts as well that you're like, holy shit, is this guy Grandmaster so and so or Master so and so, and you'll get the occasional like opportunity to go do a seminar with them or whatever, but you don't get that interaction, I guess, that you get with a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu type seminar or just it in general. It's really a weird but cool experience. Like, for the longest time, good example, I'd watch Kurt Sanders' move of the week, white belt all the way. I'm like, I want to meet that guy one day. Like, I'll be like, oh God, I'm so scared, nervous. Like, met the dude. I'm like, solid guy. Had him on the show, hung out with him. It's awesome. And that's something
Absolutely.
Like we were talking about. You're just like, holy shit, are you serious? Like, I'm getting to like talk with this guy about jiu-jitsu and life in general. Like, you can't do that with Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan's going to be like, yeah, get the fuck out of here, man. Like, I don't care.
And you could sit there and say, hey, you know what? Maybe I got a pair of Jordan shoes and, I bought them off eBay for $5,000 and got them autographed. Well, I got, James Foster choked the shit out of me. It's like, I'll take the choke over that. That's a memorable experience. And I think that's what's awesome about jiu-jitsu. You have those memories to walk away with. You put something in your back pocket, a move or something, but it's not just the technique that you're learning. You're taking away the experience that the whole setting of learning that experience, that technique. I learned some techniques. I went to a Kawatera seminar 3 years ago, so this is pretty cool that I get to go to his school and have black belts for butterflies there. But he taught two different techniques. One, he showed the whole breakdown of how he tapped out Jeff Glover at Metamoris 2. It was so simple and how well he taught it that I sat there and put it in my back pocket. I used it the next week. I was rolling and I was using the technique. He also showed another technique of different type of armbar that he goes for. And 3 years later, I think in the last maybe 2 months, I'm actually starting to use that on the mat, which is pretty cool. It took me a while to figure out, and I had to, grow in jiu-jitsu and learn different skill sets so that it was applicable then. But now 3 years later, it's man, that was one of my favorite seminars I ever went to. How he spoke about himself personally, how he got into jiu-jitsu, how he taught. It was a good time. We laughed a ton. So I think that's what's cool about jiu-jitsu, is that you're going to take that away. It's like a pair of shoes, autograph, jersey. You sell it, you get rid of it. Eventually, it's not as important, or maybe your life changes. But those memories, you can't give those away. Those are there for good, which is awesome.
Exactly. So, with you doing jiu-jitsu, how did you get started with doing Brazilian jiu-jitsu?
It's funny because I played soccer up until I was 30. Not a lot of people know, but I kind of changed my whole direction in life when I was 28. I was a little bit of a shit show, you could say. I spent 20 years in the restaurant industry. So that's enough right there. So I finally started to turn my life around, and I quit drinking, and then after that I quit smoking, and then I got hurt playing soccer. So I was bummed out. I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I can't play soccer anymore because I'm going to get hurt. Something else is going to happen. And my buddy, we all went out to Vegas to go see Chuck Liddell versus Rampage.
Oh man!
And I'm a huge Chuck fan. He's my favorite of all time.
Sorry about that fight then.
Oh, it hurt. It hurt. But so we went out to Vegas, and then when we got back, he's like, I'm going to start jiu-jitsu. I'm like, all right. It was never anything, I don't know, feasible. It was always like, that would be cool, but I'm not going to do that. So I was bartending with him, and we'd lock the door at 2 o'clock, kick everyone out. And next thing you know, he's like, oh, let me show you this. And he starts kicking the crap on me, linoleum floors in the bar, showing me moves, showing me what he learned. So I took about 2 months of a beating on the floor, and I'm like, all right, I'm signing up. And went in, and I started at this a Hoist Gracie affiliate, West Hartford, Connecticut, and that was it. That was 9 years ago. I stayed there for about 2 years, and then I switched schools to Manchester Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu under Rob, the best man at my wedding. I met him through Jiu-Jitsu. He actually gave his best man speech in Jiu-Jitsu gi. It was awesome. So it's Jiu-Jitsu's, it's been such a huge part of my life. It's given me so much. I left the bar business. I graduated, that paid for college. And then I started doing social work for substance abuse and mental health. And Jiu-Jitsu is my therapy. For 6 years, I was in that business. So if you have some really bad days in there, and you deal with you see the really ugly side of society. So with that, and then I was just, I don't know. It's taken me so many good places. So in the last 6 months, between Blackbelts for Butterflies, a lot of experience, the owner of my academy, he actually hired me full time. So I got to quit my job. It was December 23rd, Christmas Eve was my last day as a social, in the social work field. And now it's like I teach jiu-jitsu. I run the day-to-day business at, the academy. And man, my wife is like, I've never seen you this happy. And, people say like, oh dude, when I retire, I'm going to do this. I'm like, I retired December 23rd because now I get to focus on teaching jiu-jitsu, meeting good people, running black belts for butterflies, and seeing where that goes. So life is crazy. You never know where you're going to end up and how happy you really can be if you put some effort into it.
Yeah, oh my God, like that's the dream right there. I mean, I'm a little jealous, of course, obviously, 'cause I'm not running a school full time, stuff like that. But that's amazing that you went from bartending. I've been there too. I think everybody should do a little bit of time working in the restaurant. Yeah. It's definitely a humbling and eye-opening experience. Like, I really appreciate a lot of things after working for tips and dealing with people who didn't like a certain sauce on their barbecue versus
Oh yeah,
it's wild, man. Like, I really do think it's something everybody needs to experience. Maybe 6 months.
Nah, give them a year. Make them pay. Make them miserable. Let them know what it's like to deal with humanity.
Oh my God.
So it definitely it gave me a lot of life skills, dealing with a lot of adversity through the restaurant industry. I've waited tables, bartended. I was a busser and washed dishes. I managed clubs, bars, restaurants. I've kind of I ran the gambit in that, but it really did it made me a well-adjusted, semi-well-adjusted adult. I didn't get fully adjusted until 29.
Yeah, that's not bad. I was going to say, like, oh man, like, I can't think of like anything crazy as far as working in a restaurant. I'd worked in a restaurant a while, same thing, kind of, as a line cook, and then eventually being a, server and then a bartender. But still, like, just the being treated a certain way. And like you said, facing adversity and just preparing you for adulthood. Like, some people say, oh, we should make, military service mandatory. Nah, I think it should be like restaurant business. I think it's way worse, actually.
Oh, it was probably about 2 years before I finally, quit the bartending industry. And St. Patty's Day parade, it's just the worst day to work because people they lose all common sense and manners. And it's like, all you do is put your head down, make beers, make drinks. You're not making small talk with anyone because you're serving, 500 people in an hour. Easy. It's like you're just sitting there crushing drinks. And all of a sudden, this guy's yelling at me. And the next thing I know, he had one of those kid dart guns. And shot me right in the forehead trying to get my attention. So, yeah, that was not good for him. So, it's like you don't get, I don't know many other people, jobs where, someone's like, yeah, I got hit in the face with a dart gun. So.
Yeah, I would just hung my towel up and be like, you know what? Fuck it. You make your own drinks. I'm out. I can't deal with this shit. So
that was a year later I did that. It was right before the St. Patty's Day parade. That was like, I was done. I was just absolutely, I'm trying to think back if I ever quit another job, but that was the one job where I walked out. I was like, I'll finish my shift at 5 o'clock. I'm not coming back. They're like, no, you're coming back. I'm like, nope.
Yeah.
I called my wife. I'm like, can I quit? She's like, please do. And that was it. That was the last day I worked. So,
man, I know a lot of people really would like just to walk out on a job. Like,
it takes a lot, that's a lot of fear and a lot of responsibility. But when you've had it and you're that miserable, life shouldn't be miserable. We should be as happy as we can be because, we really do. It's like, you see the bumper stickers and everyone posts on Facebook with the, whatever, saying they have of one shot, but it's true. It's all of a sudden you turn from a 20-year-old, now you're a 30-year-old. It's like 30 and it's like, I'm 40 now. It's like, holy cow, I can't believe it. It's like, how did I turn 40? It's like, I'm like dad.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's one of those things where it's like, you really do have to take advantage of, your friends and family and really sit there and appreciate what you have in life. I think with Black Belts for Butterflies, that's given me such a huge opportunity to sit there and say, I'm thankful for everyone that's a part of it. I start off every seminar the same way. I talk about myself, and I tell people, it's like, you're going to hear me say I or me, but then it's going to change. I'm going to switch gears because it's ours. If you're here, if you're on the mat, if you buy a patch, a t-shirt, a hat, you're part of Black Belts for Butterflies. Take ownership of this seminar. Take ownership of what you're doing here. Open up about your life, and don't just sit here and train jiu-jitsu. It's one big event. It's one special thing. So, and people go with that. It's pretty cool to see people. Some people walk in with that little bit of bravado and check in. All right, who's the higher belt here? And then all of a sudden, after those first 2 hours, it gets washed away, and everyone's just talking and hugging, and you're playing jiu-jitsu. They're sharing their game. They're sharing what techniques they like, what works better for them. Then all of a sudden, it turns into, oh yeah, you got kids? Yeah, I got a 7-year-old. Oh well, my brother has he's got a daughter with autism, and people start opening up, and then it really changes the dynamic and the atmosphere at the seminar, and and that's where it differs. That's where these events differ from others I've been to, because now it becomes very personal, and people not only take the ownership, but they open up and then become a little bit vulnerable. To see black belts up there that are world champions talking about their families. I'm a blubbering mess when I get up there. It's very hard for me to keep it all together when I talk about my experience and that day when my son was born. But it also opens the door for other people. It's like, it's okay. It's okay to be a little bit vulnerable, share your experience in life. And then you get black belts up there telling, they teach for an hour, but they get a few minutes before then to talk about, their lives or how this affects them. So that helps the students that are in the room kind of break down those walls. There's no drama. There's no politics. It's people coming together for just a good cause. So that's what love the event. That's why it's so dear to my heart.
Man, and I really need to experience one of these at some point. If you ever did one, in Europe, I'd be down for it. It's a little bit of a flight sometimes to get out there.
I'm up for that. I'm definitely up for a Europe trip. Hell yeah. Maybe man. Italy. I'd like to go back.
Yeah, because you were saying that you had grown up in Italy, right?
Yeah, my father was in the Navy, so he spent a little over 20 years. So we bounced around all over Europe. We were stationed in Italy for 3 years. So it was really very cool experience. I was very spoiled. So, I look back on it and I'm just like, man, why did I not take more advantage? But I was a young kid. Someone's like, all right, let's go Pompeii. I've been there twice. Why do I have to go back? It's like, really? It's like, now I sit there and think about it. The Colosseum, it's, my wife has family in Sicily. So we'll be back there. And then I've got a lot of family over in England and Scotland. So we'll definitely be back in Europe soon. So now with the 3-month-old daughter, we got to take a little time with her right now and make sure everyone's squared away before we take the overseas trip.
No, that's perfectly understandable. We have people out here who try to juggle kids and taking trips. I mean, granted, they're local trips, and if you haven't listened to the show before, I'm in Germany, so, there you go. But, it is a little difficult, and I understand that completely. So, with you running Black Belts for Butterflies, teaching full-time, you got a family, how's the balance going with that? Like what type of advice would you give for somebody who's trying to balance, training, family, and jiu-jitsu or something else, maybe a job all together? Like, what advice would you give them?
I'm honestly, I'm still trying to figure that one out. I'm a stress ball. It's funny. Nick Halusky, who's the host of this seminar, he owns Oskier, and he's been such an awesome person to work with. And for the last few years. They've been a sponsor for Blackbelts for Butterflies. But I was telling him, it's like, this is dealing with this. Blackbelts for Butterflies is like competing for me. I hate it.
Really?
It's the month leading up. I can't stand it. I get stressed out. If I'm sleeping, all of a sudden I'll wake up and I'll be like, oh, what about this? Or what about, is this done? Is this done? But once I'm at the event, it's like, as soon as I step on the plane to head out, or I walk in the doors of the academy for the first day, it's like everything just melts away. It's kind of like stepping on the mat and competing. I have no problem. Like, once I'm on the mat, it's like, win or lose, you've done everything. And it's like, all right, now have fun. I'm not very good at competing, but and that's why I have such a high regard for all these guys to put in. I think about what I do for Blackbelts for Butterflies, creating an event and setting it up. I have so much help from the black belts themselves. I've got a young woman, Nicole Beach, who really stepped up, and she's helped me out so much with the social marketing this year. So with that, it's like, how do you juggle? Now you have these guys that juggle family's job and competing. It's like, I give them a ton of credit. Like, Foster will be fighting this Friday on Fight to Win. He's going to be fighting James Pupolo. And that's going to be an amazing match. Very excited to see him. So, my stress level and trying to juggle two kids, I don't know. It's a challenge, but it's also, it's like, all right, well, it's like anything else. It's trial by error. If this works, let's see if it will work again. If I failed on it, all right, don't do that again. So for people that are trying to juggle all things, I'm lucky because I get to train 5 days a week, sometimes 6. But before this, I was training, some days 2, some weeks like 3 days. It's, as long as you're on the mat and you love what you do, you love jiu-jitsu, just get to class. But just go 2 times a week. Make the time for yourself. You have to. You'll be a better person for it because, the stress goes away. You're nicer to your wife. Your husband enjoys you more because, you went out and choked some people and you come home. Your kids, they're not as frustrating because your tolerances for, kids being kids, you've got more tolerance. You're happier. I always say jiu-jitsu is amazing therapy.
No, it's one of my favorite things to do to get all the stress out in life. Like, I joke and I tell my wife, like, after class, you pretty much can tell me you accidentally burned down the kitchen. I'd just be like, whatever, I don't give a shit. It's fine. We'll rebuild it. I don't care. Like, that's something I do love about jiu-jitsu. And you're getting to experience something that I feel like a lot of people, especially maybe in the beginning, are like, my goal one day, run a school. That's it. Like, I'm going to embrace the jiu-jitsu lifestyle. I'm going to, run my own school. All this, everything's going to be, rainbows and unicorns and, gold and money are going to fall out of the sky, shit like that. And so what's something you would tell people who's maybe ankle, and, maybe this is something I need to hear myself because I kind of like, oh, it'd be great to run my own school and nothing bad will ever happen. Like running a school. Like, what are some things people need to be aware of?
Oh, I'll bring it back to bartending. When I was bartending, it's like I met a lot of people that thought, bartending was the coolest thing. Owning a bar is the coolest thing. Well, sitting on the other side of the bar drinking and thinking about owning a bar is really cool. But running it, that's a totally different animal. Running a jiu-jitsu school, I was given the keys to the kingdom, so to say. Manchester BJJ is a huge school, ton of students. So it's like, but it wasn't always that way. Rob, you want to talk about balance, and this guy is, Rob Anga is an animal. He was a police officer. He's got 3 boys, and the school has grown so much. But there are so many nights where, when he started off the school, it's like there wasn't anyone there, or there was 2 or 3 students, but he had to be there. He had to, pay the electric bills. He had to go there in the storms, and just in case that one student showed up who's paying, he has sacrificed a ton. So I have the utmost respect for him as a person, a father, a black belt. So when, we started talking about me coming on and, running the school, the day-to-day stuff and teaching for him, that was an amazing, I was blown away. I was like, really? And for him to have me do that, that's a lot of trust. But he has been that person that I've seen the sacrifices he's made. He's told me a lot of the different things that he's gone through. It's not easy. Building your base, your school, the students, we have a bunch of different schools in the area, and everyone's kind of got their own flavor. But I've seen a bunch of the black belts who have opened their schools, worked their asses off. I don't think people understand the sacrifices that is to open a school and to keep plugging away at it and not let it close, and what you're going to put your family through, just like any other business. But I think, and it comes from the top. Rob's a great guy, and it shows how much love and passion he has for it, because our school, we got a great bunch of people. We all work, so we're not trying to kill each other. You can't go to work if you can't walk. Yeah. The corporate guys, it's like they're going in suit and tie and busted nose, tooth missing. So it comes from the top down, how all our black belts treat each other, treat the students. There's no ego. There's no drama at our school. It's really awesome. And because it's nipped in the bud right off the bat, you just don't bring it into the school. We don't have any numbnuts. It's like if someone starts kind of getting out of court and start roughing people up, it's a conversation. It's like, hey, you don't do that. It's not how we treat our students. You want to go do that, find an MMA school and beat the crap out of each other. But this is a jiu-jitsu school. We're fostering learning, but you're teaching people life lessons on the mat, which is really cool. So if any one piece of advice, just get ready to, you got to want it. You got to want to succeed and put everything into it. I think that would be the one thing about owning a jiu-jitsu school.
Excellent. And previously or earlier in the conversation, you talked about this kind of being like the golden age of jiu-jitsu. Do you think now is a good time for a lot of people, if they want to start doing a jiu-jitsu school, to jump into it? Or do you think it's something do you think we're still going to be good for a little while and maybe see it playing out really well, or be like, oh shit, it's, strike while the iron's hot type situation?
I don't think there's any wrong time to start. If you've got an itch, go find a school. Go do your research, look them up and look at the reviews. One thing that we don't do at our school is hard sell anyone. People come in, it's like, hey, come in, take a look, ask us any questions. We have a few different, ways. They can free week, or they can sign up for 1 month. We don't do any like lockdown. I got your fingerprint, your social security number, and you're mine. Because if they're going to want to be a part of your school, they'll come back. Yeah. They'll see what we offer. I definitely, it's like the whole thing. Well, when I get in better shape, then I'll start jiu-jitsu. Yeah. It's like, that's never going to happen. It's never going to happen. Jiu-jitsu is a different animal. So the only way to get better at it is just do it. So these people there, if you're going to wait, that's all you're doing is waiting. There's no real way to prime yourself to get on the mats. Just jump into it. Full head. Just get in there.
Nice. No, I agree. I hear a lot. Well, I need to lose like 10 pounds. Like, trust me, you're going to do it in the first week. Promise. We'll roll hard enough where like you're going to feel like you're dying, but you're not. You'll lose 10 pounds the first week. No problem. If you come to every class out here. So, yeah.
I think that's one of the coolest things is seeing people's transformation from like day 1 to 1 year. It's like, and it's not just physical either. It's like watching them with their confidence and their personality, and it's people change. The mats really do change people, which is cool. But yeah, it's like the golden age. It's like, you still got, the greats, Marcelo Garcia, he's still on the mat. It's like, why wouldn't you jump in now? And it's like, maybe it's over your head what he's doing, but to sit there and say, yeah, I was on the mat with Marcelo at one point. That's pretty awesome.
That is. That really is. And you put it in such a good perspective. Like if, I wonder if anybody listens to this show that doesn't train. I hope they do take the plunge like you're talking about and just go ahead and just train. Like don't be scared of it. Just do it. And just.
I had a friend that recently just started about 2 months ago, and 9 years. This guy was a marathon runner. He's like, I'm not doing that. He's like, it looks funny. It's like you guys laying on top of each other and rolling around. No, that's just weird. Go over to his house for barbecues, and it's like, you're going to get your bumps and bruises in jiu-jitsu. So it's like, show up and this is injured or this is, mess this up. And he's like, dude, why do you do that? Never doing that. 2 months ago, he's finally like, all right, I'm going to try this. And he told me he was scared shitless sitting in his car, coming into the 6 o'clock class in the morning. And he's like, I don't know if I'm going to do it or not. I don't know. And you know what? He came in, did the 1 hour class, and he's like, it wasn't that bad. And it's like, this is pretty. Now it's like he's already bought his second gi. He's got a few rash guards. Oh yeah. So we got him hooked, and it really does. His outlook on it has definitely changed. So some people, and it's not for everyone, it's definitely not for everyone. But if you do try it, give it a shot.
And like you say, if you don't like it, you don't like it. It's okay. I mean, I had a guy I trained with for a while. He's a friend of mine still, and he stopped training. What was it? 3 months before I saw him again. And he told me, I guess he had to have a couple beers to finally loosen up from the coach or the former coach. He's like, I was really scared to tell you I didn't like doing jiu-jitsu. I'm like, dude, it's not going to affect me. I don't care. I still like you as a person. Like it's okay, man. You don't have to do jiu-jitsu if I do jiu-jitsu.
But it is true that it's like your circle of friends gets a little smaller of the people that do train and the people that don't train. Yeah. I think I've got 2 left that don't train because they become your family. That's your social, your network. Those are the people. I remember when I had my son, it was like, man, I got so much great fatherly advice from all the guys on the mat. Those are the ones that, they're like, hey, what do you need? Oh, your son's, he's screaming his head off from 5:30 to 7:30. Do the football hold, So, worked like a champ. So, yeah, the circle of friends gets smaller and smaller for people that don't do jiu-jitsu. And I think that's where that whole, it's a cult. Well, it is. It's a cult. We'll be real.
Yeah. I'm cool with saying that too. Yeah.
But it's a good thing, it's a group of good people. They're all on the same path of, just trying to better themselves, have a good time, learn a skill. And so if that's a cult that I'm pretty happy to be in.
Yeah, nobody's cutting their junk off or drinking Kool-Aid with cyanide in or anything like that. We just, choke each other unconscious and try to break each other's arms. That's any different.
We do look for a comet every once in a while. Put on our Nike shoes.
Well, Rich, I really do appreciate you coming on the show, man. This has been a hell of an interview. And before we head out, if you'd like to give any shout outs, any say hey to anybody, go for it. The floor is yours.
Well, I would love to. First of all the black belts that are they'll be teaching, Kyle, Tara, Yuri Simos, Brian Pangolina, James Foster, Marcos Torregrossa, Alan Marquez, Kristen Barland, our 8th black belt, who I'm not naming yet. But also Nick Haleski, and then Nicole Myling Beach. She also has a foundation, My Bruises Are For, which is awesome. It's for abused women, and she's using that to help them with jiu-jitsu. She's been a huge help with me and a lot of the marketing. Then my sponsors, if I could give a little shout out, Tortuga Soap, New Hampshire, NHB Gear, Sam Kim, Button Kisses does all my geese. Instead of getting heat patched, she threads everything, embroidered, beautiful. Then I got Monkey Tape. We picked up Leo Optics, which is really awesome. Nice Guy Jiu-Jitsu out of New York. Pride Clothing out of Virginia. Then we got Chocoloha, Oskier, and Show Your Roll. So, a bunch of, I can't say thank you enough to all those guys for being a part of Black Belts for Butterflies and believing what we're doing. So thank you so much for having me. This has been a blast.
Absolutely.
July.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Get that out. July 22nd and 23rd at Black Belts for Butterflies West Coast in San Jose, California. So it's going to be at Cayo Academy in San Jose. So you go on Eventbrite for tickets, and like I said, hit me up on Instagram, Rich McKeegan, or my Facebook page, Black Belts for Butterflies.
Nice.
That was a mouthful.
That was. I'm going to say, yeah, if you don't go to the seminar, you're a loser. You need to go to the seminar. Like, you really do. And
yeah, I promise you won't walk away disappointed. This is, and it's like 100% of the proceeds, like I said, goes to Angels on Stage in San Jose. So it's definitely a worthwhile cause, and, you're giving money to something good. And you learn jiu-jitsu from great people.
That's like a win-win. I mean, come on. Where else can you do that? Either give somebody money and you learn, or you help an organization, you're doing both. Perfect.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Anytime, Rich, man. I'm really glad you came on. I had a hell of a time talking to you, and definitely need to do this again.
Absolutely. Maybe before the next event, we'll get together and we'll rehash this one, see how it went over, and then, I'll tell you about the Connecticut event and all the awesome people that are going to be for that one.
Sounds good, and hopefully maybe I'll be stateside for that. Make life a little easier. I'll definitely come up for that.
Awesome.
But thanks again, Rich. I really do appreciate it.
All right. Have a great night.
You too. So, ladies and gentlemen, this has been another episode of the Big Jiu-Jitsu Show. Member of the Pod Bros Podcast Network. Don't forget to go to podbros.com and find yourself another podcast you want to listen to. And check out our sponsors, Trap and Roll Soap Company, Tape Armor, PR Performance, and Angry Joe Coffee, and find all of our old episodes on bjjshow.com. I'm Rob, and I'll see you guys next time.